Okay, I couldn't really think of an intro for this video, and I'm tired of using the same one, so here's a picture of a capybara, and then here's a picture of some weird shit I found on the internet. Glaive is an artist that I found pretty interesting, as I did not know how well known in the glitch pop and hyperpop community that he is, and considering this is also my first full project listen of him, I thought that this was a pretty decent EP. I admire the elements of hyperpop that Glaive uses throughout, and the guitar on a couple of tracks was really cool, but at the same time, I don't have much to say except mentioning how the EP sounds pretty well produced for a less than 20-minute project, and I can appreciate that. Most of the songs on here are listenable, but it is the beginning of this kid's career, so let's give it some time and give this EP a strong 6 to a light 7. Wow. Just wow. I am in complete shock by this album. I thought that Lingua Ignota's previous project Caligula was one of the most disturbing yet oddly entertaining albums I've ever listened to. The touching on subjects such as sexual assault, religion, loss of faith, toxicity, abuse, all of these taboo subjects that you can think of. And that was all focused in grave detail on Caligula. But as for this new project, everything is pushed to the limit and creates an eerie atmosphere on top of the mix of industrial, classical, and noise music to enhance the experience of one of the most terrifying and the most, quote, real I've ever heard someone sing. The lyrics, the instrumentation, the avant-garde mix of how to deliver and give someone insight into these taboo subjects while having a music equivalent to the actual feeling that you feel in these types of situations. But here's the thing, I do not enjoy this as a music piece. I enjoy this for the pure emotion and the inkling of art describing some of the most traumatic things that you can ever listen to. And last month I made my first 0 with Tones and I. This album is garbage. And today is the first precedented 10 on this channel. Lingua Ignota's Singer Get Ready, the first 10. As much as Nas is as an influential rapper, I do not keep up with his whole discography, but what I can say here is that Nas still got it. This album just shows that some people just have a natural talent of rapping, and Nas just shows that throughout this entire project. Nas utilizing many different types of instrumentations and different types of flows, experimenting throughout, and it never seems to fall flat, except for a few tracks that would just be better off not even being on the album. The songs on here are actually pretty well produced, and some of the features on here, like Eminem on EPMD2 and Miss Lauryn Hill on Nobody, being some of the standouts to me. Necessarily, I don't see anything inherently wrong with this project, and I thought that's just because, you know, Nas has his typical swagger and delivery that everyone knows him for on almost all of his projects, but at the same time, the good does outweigh the bad, and I did enjoy listening to this project. Like the decent 7. I ain't gonna lie, I had a little bit of hope for this album on the second track, because Brazil is actually not too bad, and Iggy's flow wasn't too bad. It was somewhat unironically enjoyable, but every song after that was basically dog shit. I mean, hell, it's Iggy Azalea, and I just hope that end of an era just means that she's gonna stop making music like the decent 2. I hadn't really kept up with Suicide Boy since Eternal Grey, but I am pleasantly happy with this project. And another thing that I like about this album is the variety, as the very croony type vocals work on most of the songs here, especially songs that are just straight bangers like We Envy Nothing in the World, or Bleach, which I think is probably my favorite on the project. This is a pretty ambitious album for Suicide Boys, and it does show their maturity in the production compared to their older SoundCloud days. But it also gives time for the emo slower tracks like Forget It or 5 Grand at 8 to 1. Most of the songs just never seem like they were just hastily thrown together or sound like throwaways, and it just shows a lot of creativity throughout, and I was pleasantly surprised by this project. Light 7. In a foreign car, going so fast, and I should not like this album as much as I do, but it is a catchy ass album. But compared to that, there was also a lot of filler on this album as well. Thugged Out is ruined by Kodak Black. Now Nana Boo Boo I like ironically. Y&S can just be cut, and Far Apart could have been saved by Kevin Gates, but he did not deliver on his feature at all. Okay, so that's all the bad things. Now the good parts of this album outweigh the bad in my opinion. Mind of Melvin is a brag rap banger with Lil Uzi, Take Care with Lil Baby and Durk is a potential chart topper and is a very, very enjoyable track. Capri Sun is a super guilty pleasure track and a little bit sus with everyone's favorite sus rapper, Young Thug. And Best Friends for Life is a romantic track about his wife, and Lil TJ does not disappoint on his feature either. So this is a very 50-50 album for me, but overall, I think it has more good than bad. And I think that this is his second best work to date besides I Am You. Decent to strong 6. Dude, who is this? Remember that Jaden guy that I talked about last month? Yeah, picture that, but the songs are sung better and has more Travis Barker? But I think I enjoyed this album better than Jaden's. Light 3. I listened to this album all the way through and I just do not remember anything about it. This album just seems like an infinite mountain peak. Just keeps climbing and climbing and I just keep thinking something is going to happen, but it just never does. And sadly, the best thing about this album is the album cover. Decent to strong 4. Holy fucking smokes, I got my money up. Well, at least this album is better than Pegasus. Trippy does try a different sound on this album, which I can appreciate, but the problem is, basically all of the tracks have the same type of sample. Like, picture the beat from Holy Smokes, but just copy pasted with very little variety added. I mean, the beat was cool when Holy Smokes and Miss the Rage dropped, but it was just different because they were singles. He just keeps falling into the same aspect where he just keeps padding out his track list and just immediately thinks if he throws one good song out, it's going to be a good album. But I was let down once again. Leaks with the same beat throughout, or songs that just seem outdated. Danny Phantom is the best example of this because Trip at Night is just another padded album that Trippy wants to add some more money to. Like the Decent 3. This album could have been so much better than it was, but Halsey overhyped the hell out of this project, and she just misled everybody with the marketing. This was supposed to be, according to her, a concept album about the joys and horror of pregnancy and childbirth. It was very important to me that the cover art conveyed the sentiment of my journey over the past few months. Now, I don't get the whole concept album thing, because honestly, this concept is not well put together at all. Besides a few songs that are directly talking about her husband and a few songs for her daughter, the rest of the tracks do not really stick to a similar format, and the many different genre fusions that she tries out on this album do not work at all. Darling, Honey, 1121, and The Tradition are great examples of the concept that she says that she wanted to put out, and I feel as if the album just could have stuck to one similar format for the instrumentals. And if she were to just put a little bit more thought into what the concept was supposed to be, it could have been executed so much better than what we were given. And maybe I'm a little bit too hard on it, but whatever. Like the Decent 5. We Love You Tekka 1, except it's 4 minutes longer, and literally every single song has the same beat and has no sign of growth, and I literally like 10% of this 20-track album. And a good majority of that percent is the features by Ian Dior and Lil Yachty, but otherwise this album is just hot ass. Like the Decent 2. These guys are a band I recently got into after hearing that they would be at Sad Summerfest, which I also mentioned about the Maine last month. Once I got access to the album, I was pleasantly surprised. After listening to their 2019 project, Nella Vita, I can say that Umbra is a definite improvement from Nella Vita. Not to say that it is a bad project, but I just think that Grayscale has improved significantly, and songs like Babylon, Motown, Carolina Skies, and Dreamcatcher are songs I wish I could have heard live because the vocals are just so addicting to listen to. The soothing mix of pop punk and alt rock never fail for Grayscale, and I really liked listening to this project. Like the Decent 7. A sudden announcement of the album, then a delay, and then when it drops, it's nearly 2 hours long. I was honestly scared I wasn't going to like this project because it just had all of the red flags in mind for a bad album. I think that this is some of Kanye's most ambitious material to date. Kanye West has just created a real world with this record, going through the topics of his divorce, the death of his mother, his complicated relationship that he has with God that he mentions on most of his projects nowadays, and the gargantuan amount of features on this project just to add to the experience more. Some of my favorite tracks and features just off the top of my head: Jail featuring Jay-Z is a fire track to pump up the album. Hurricane featuring The Weeknd and Lil Baby just creates such an atmosphere, and Lil Baby kills his verse as always. Moon with Don Toliver and Kid Cudi, one of the most soothing and earworm tracks probably of this year. Remote Control featuring Young Thug, a personal favorite of mine. And that's just 4 out of the many songs that I liked on this project. But with a huge track list and monster hype, what comes with this album is some tracks that just shouldn't be here. Honestly, all of the part 2s on this album can just be cut. I mean, realistically, this album could probably be cut down to maybe about an hour 20 or maybe even an hour 15, and I would still enjoy it. I feel like Kanye lived up to the very, very high expectations that this album was supposed to be put at, and I think it's some of Kanye's most personal work to date, and the project definitely lived up to the hype. And it's also better than Certified Lover Boy. Strong 7 to light 8.